studying fashion and portrait photography in the summer of '94 in Santa Barbara, California, because it was a spectacular way to meet women. No, it was. I was 21 years old and carrying a camera on a beach all day. Do the math, you know. With 18 credits to go, I lost my financial aid. The government sent me a letter saying, your parents made too much money. We're taking away your financial aid. And I sent the government a letter saying, you know, dear government, my parents do, in fact, make too much money. They keep it. and the government did not find that funny. That was one of my first lessons about learning about big companies and big organizations and governments that just don't find stuff funny. There's no sense of humor. So, with 18 credits to go, I moved back across the country. Like, it's the freezing cold. It was like middle of December. I'm driving back to New York. The day I left, it was like 89 degrees and sunny. Like, in Santa Barbara. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm getting in the car, and the sun's just coming up, and it's going to be a gorgeous day, and Take It to the Limit by the Eagles comes on the radio. This sucks. I hate this. Give me the lead. So I moved back to New York, and then I lived in my parents' basement. Then it gets a lot worse. Anyone here under 30? Raise your hand if you're under 30. All right. You're under 30. Who over here? All right, what's your name? Nisha, I'm going to have to explain some of this stuff to you because something's not going to make any sense at all. So, here's what you got to imagine. It's the summer, it's the winter now, 1995, right? 94, 95. I'm hanging out in my parents' basement. I'm hanging out on something called America Online. And even worse, I'm hanging out on something called the Melrose Place TV Gossip Chat. Now, I know this seems really, really strange to you. Imagine twittering about, like, Gossip Girl or about Jersey Shore, but you're doing it, you're in front of a computer. It's not like you're in front of a computer. The computer's connected to something called a modem. M-O-D-E-M. The modem, the modem is connected to a phone. Here's the key part. The phone is connected to a wall. Because in the 90s, phones were connected to walls. This is what we did. You type something on the computer, you'd go get a pizza, you'd come back, someone would type something else. This is what we did, instead of like, dating. And so I'm doing this, I'm hanging out in this chat room, and someone in this chat room on Melrose Place TV Gossip, this is 95, everyone my age knows this is when Melrose was cool. So, in this chat room, someone says, you know, hey Peter, you have this journalism degree from Boston University. My company's trying to build a newsroom. Why don't you submit your resume? And that was my first lesson, one of my life rules. Anytime I say life rules, write it down. My first life lesson, life rule, say yes and learn how to do it later. That will get you more business than anything else. Say yes, learn how to do it later, but actually learn how to do it. Don't fake it. Learn how to do it. Say yes, learn how to do it later. So they said, no, Peter, you have this journalism degree. You should submit your resume. We'd love to, you should love to see your resume because my company's trying to build a newsroom. I said, sure, I have no experience, never done anything in a real journalist newsroom before. I'm sure this would be awesome. Sarcasm doesn't translate well in a chat room. And so I submitted my resume, and 2 weeks later, I was being moved down to Virginia to become one of the founding editors of the America Online newsroom. Out of the blue. Like, literally, like, woke up one morning, I was in my parents' basement, miserable. 2 weeks later, I was living in Virginia, working at this startup. I think it was employee 382 or something like that at AOL. It was obscene. We had no idea what we were doing for 2.5 years. We created this online newsroom. No one had ever done this before. And every day we walked in, and we had no idea what we were doing. This was 95, when AOL was the internet, as far as everyone's concerned. If you were on AOL, you're on the internet. That's what people knew. People thought, do you work for AOL? It was like I walked into a building every day with the words the internet on the door. And it's like, I'm in the internet, here I am. You know, that's what people thought. Me and Al Gore were buddies. So for 3 years, 2.5 years, we created this newsroom. And we learned this great life rule. We made up the rules as we went along. Great movie, Better Off Dead. Right? It's a skiing movie, so it quite fits here. There's a great scene in Better Off Dead where John Cusack's at the top of the hill, learning how to ski. Right? And his friend, the stoner guy, says, dude, stop worrying. Skiing's really simple. Go that way. Really fast. If something gets in your way, turn. And broken down, that really is simple. So we were trying to do that, and every time we did something and it worked, we'd do it again. If we did something and it didn't work, we didn't do it again. Yeah. And it was like the simplest thing in the world, but that's how we created AOL. That's how we created the newsroom anyway. It was spectacular. Well, that got a lot of floppy disks. But the older people will know what that means. You don't even know what a floppy disk is. You were born long after floppy disk went away. So yeah, so that's what we did. And that's how we created the AOL newsroom. When I left AOL, a few years later, and moved back to New York, I knew that I wanted to start this. I wound up at AOL when I'm talking all about the newsroom and why it was so great. And no one understood that. I had a senator's aide come up to me. We were trying to get press credentials to cover the Democratic and Republican conventions in '96 as a news outlet. And I had a senator's aide come up to me and go, no, I don't even know why you guys are testifying here. We use AOL to download pictures of Pamela Anderson. What the hell do you need news credentials for? It's '96. No one ever heard of online news. Now, how many of you get your news from like television? So it's all online. So, but back then we had to pay this way. So I wound up being the guy who talked all about AOL and told people all about AOL. So when I moved back to New York, I'm like, okay, I can do PR. This is easy. I know how to talk to people. It's easy to sell something, to sell a story. I can do this. So I moved back to New York, and I wanted to start this agency. I had no money. I was still living in my parents' basement. As the story told, as they promptly stole all my good one-liners, I'm telling you the story. There was a movie coming out called Titanic. I figured some other people had to hate this movie as much as I did. So I built this T-shirt that read, "It sank, get over it." And I went to Times Square, and I figured if I could sell 180 shirts in 5 hours, in a week, 180 shirts in a week, I'd break even. That's all I'm going to do. It cost me $1,800 to make the shirts. That was my rent money. By that point, I finally moved into an apartment, and that was my rent money, $1,800. And the apartment, mind you, in Manhattan, back in the 90s, $1,800 rent for an apartment. The apartment was like the size of, like, you. And so I had $1,800. I'm like, all right, let me just sell 180 shirts at $10 a piece to make my rent money back. Otherwise, I'll move back to my parents' house. I figured it would take a week to sell 180 shirts. I sold 500 shirts in 6 hours. Made $5 grand. Ran back to my apartment, threw it up in the air, rolled around in it.
You'll never get that image out of your head.
And then I called this reporter at USA Today. Here's a tip. I called this reporter at USA Today on a Saturday morning. You want to pitch a story to USA Today? Email them on a Saturday morning. Why? Pitch them something on a Saturday morning, because on a Saturday morning, they have to create Monday's newspaper before Sunday's happen. That's hard. It's hard to create a newspaper 2 days in advance when the news hasn't happened yet for the day you want to report it. They need a lot of filler on Saturdays. So I called this reporter USA Today and says, I just did something really funny. I thought you'd find it funny. She goes, oh my God, that's hysterical. So you're selling the shirts online now? And I went, of course I am. That's why I called you. I mean, duh. Built the worst website known to man. I mean, it was like, this was 98. There was no WordPress. There was like no WYSIWYG. This was like me trying to learn HTML in an hour. Buy shirt, click here. You clicked, and then I didn't have a credit card. What the hell? I got a credit card account, right? You clicked to send me an email saying you wanted a shirt. I emailed you back my mailing address. You mailed me a check. I created the Rube Goldberg fulfillment house, essentially. That's what I built. And so the reporter said, okay, it's a funny story. We'll see what we can do. And I put the phone down and immediately thought about something else. Because for those who have followed me online or know anything about me, I had ridiculous ADHD. Like, pure diagnosis. Like, there is no doubt. I've been diagnosed several times. Like, they've done studies on me. But even worse, most recently, I'm on a board at NASA, and a NASA scientist freaked me out. He goes, yeah, well, you're actually, you've done a little more studies, you actually have something much worse than ADHD. You have something we're just discovering now called ADOS. When a NASA scientist says you have something much worse, you freak the hell out. I'm like, oh my God, what's ADOS? He's like, yeah, Peter, we really, I'm a little worried about you. There's no known. I'm like, what's ADOS? He goes, well, that stands for attention deficit. Who's Shankman? You suck. Yeah, I have ADOS. I've also heard it described as ADOC, which is attention deficit. Oh, cool. So, so the reporter said, we'll see what we can do. And I went, great, oh, my cat. Something else. Totally forgot about it. Lying in bed, the phone rings at 5:30 in the morning. It's the hosting provider of my website. Mr. Shankman, we started calling you early. We started advertising. I'm like, dude, it's 5:30 in the morning on Monday. What the hell is wrong with you? Why are you calling? Well, sir, normally you get about 100 visitors a day to your website. Most of them are you. Thanks. It's like you had over 37,000 unique visitors to your website in the past 2 hours. You've taken down our first, second, and third primary servers. You're about to crash our fourth, fifth, and sixth. Sir, we have 7. Story broke on the front page of Life section of USA.